Hello again, and thank you for checking out part 2 of our November long-term parking podcast. Again, we had so many questions this month that we split the recording into 2 separate parts. With that being said, let's continue the conversation with James, Dieter, and Hisham for part 2 of our November long-term parking podcast. In your opinion, is Google Classroom the best or a good tool with which to teach?
Well, it's simply the platform that's been provided, at least in the Redlands Unified School District. Mm-hmm. So since that is their go-to platform, I mean, I'm not saying it's the best, but it is their go-to platform.
Yeah.
I've seen elementary schools utilize Google Classroom for K through 5, and a lot of the teachers find it very useful because they're actually working on Google Classroom using almost like a TV screen that's like a big tablet, where the kids can utilize the screens and they can move things back and forth, and they created all this original content themselves. So it comes down to, you know, how involved you want these lessons to be in Google Classroom, and how you can make it your own and make it interesting and engaging.
Right.
And I was thinking, like, Google Classroom is pretty simple.
Yeah.
It really depends on what you put into it is what you'll get out of it.
Exactly.
Because there's a format for everything. However, you can always add links to other apps.
True.
If what you can find available in Google isn't engaging enough or specific enough for what you're trying to teach.
Right.
So I don't really see it as doing the teaching. It's just a place that the content you want your students to have can be found. And it kind of curates the content for them. It gets it all in one place where they can go in there, and that's where they can find what they need.
So it's kind of like a shopping mall. Like, you don't just go to the shopping mall and then just go to the clothing store. There's clothing stores, makeup stores, toy stores. It's all together in one spot.
Okay, now I'm thinking it sounds more like it's like Walmart.
It's like a Walmart.
because okay, so I'm thinking, like, you know, you have all these apps that link out right? That would be your mall, where you have to go to each individual store. So now I'm thinking, oh, well, then it's Walmart, because
just one big store.
Everything is in one place where you can find it. So
that's true. That
I
makes
didn't
sense.
think about it until you said that.
I think it really comes down to what you said. It depends on the user, and it is what you make of it.
Correct.
And, another thing is, some of the teachers have created Google Sites. So they've made a Google site. The only thing I suggest is, if you're going to use a Google site, put the link to the Google site in your Google Classroom, because it makes it difficult for the parents to find them.
Right. And so while we're on this topic, I'm going to add another question in conjunction with it, which was, is technology mightier than the sword? So since we're talking about Google Classroom, and we're talking about technology, technology is not mightier than the sword, but technology is definitely, in my mind, a tool of how you teach. So does anyone want to add to that?
Well, technology, depending on your industry, is a big thing. So, for example, in healthcare, you can't escape that technology makes things easier when it's, say, filling prescriptions or creating an IV compound, for example. The technology can't escape it, it's there. However, I still teach the old method as well, just in case they might need that, in case the technology does break down. Mm-hmm. That's for specific labs and projects and assignments. When it comes to teaching, I find technology to be very helpful, but the thing is, you got to remember, it's kind of like a PowerPoint. You can read everything off of PowerPoint. That's the technology, but then that's boring. The thing is that you're the educator. The technology is just a supplement to what you're doing.
Exactly.
So it comes down to, you know, how do you want to use that technology to engage your students? Mm-hmm. It can be fun, but in the meantime, you're still providing that information and being that moderator for it.
Right.
So I was reading an article this morning about how teaching handwriting, like cursive, increases a student's ability to communicate because it helps them. It's kind of like muscle memory. Like we have our doors all locked with the buttons, right? And when you come to walk through the door, you keep pushing the button, even though they've turned off that feature and you don't have to push it anymore. It's like it helps you memorize it and see it. So the article stated that if they practiced handwriting, that it helps them recognize the letters quicker. It helps them learn how to read better, and then it would increase their ability to use the technology in the end. So they're suggesting that you hold off on the technology until the students have a firm grasp on handwriting.
Muscle memory, yeah.
But I'm just thinking, like in some of the classes for law enforcement, they write all those reports. There's nothing wrong with doing it old school. I mean, you can have them do their rough drafts on paper and then take it into technology, take it a step further. So
Right.
And if we look at technology from a completely different lens now, from the teacher's point of view, it, like you said earlier, Chris, it's a tool that we can use, and it helps us maximize our instructional time. It helps on the assessments. I mean, I know we had this discussion the other day. Like, back when I was teaching in the classroom, I used to take my crate home full of like hundreds of notebooks and papers. And, technology now, a simple Google form can give your students that instant feedback.
Right.
And so it's...
Yeah, it's powerful. Yeah, as like I said, so good teaching is good teaching. The technology is just the tool in which you use to accomplish that good teaching, and hopefully it saves you time. Hopefully it saves your students time. Like if I want to go to the movies, I don't need to actually go down to the movie theater now, purchase my ticket, wait in line to stand in line. Now I can just use technology to buy my ticket online, pick my seat right then and there, and then just go. So
that's exactly right. You pick your seat. I just went to the movie the other day, and you pick your seats. I don't know when that started to become the norm, but...
You don't go to the movies often, huh? Yeah, no, I don't either. So I'm like, what do you mean pick my seat?
But technology makes it very powerful. You know exactly where you're going to sit, what's available.
Yeah. And you don't have to talk to anyone. That's
but you don't have to stand in line for 2 to 3 hours.
I have never stood in line for a movie for 2 to 3 hours, and I wouldn't.
Star Wars episode.
Star Wars.
Awesome. So, another question we were asked is how to grasp this technology thing better. We kind of answered some of that. We can help you personally. We've said there's the webinar where you can kind of see some more technology stuff. We have
IT.
I would say instructional technology facilitators that are always available.
At CRI-ROP though, but if somebody's at another district, I would say check with your IT department to see if there's somebody to help you, or maybe there's even a teacher that is especially skilled in technology integration. That might be helpful.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So how do I find out about possible field trips?
Okay, so that question was asked last night, and I thought it was really interesting. Actually, it wasn't asked like that. It was more like, how do I get a list of possible field trips? And I thought, oh yeah, I have all that information. I could just make a list and send it out. That's not that big of a deal. However, all of those field trips have been found through research. Google it. If there's something that you think would be interesting to your students that's related to your course, that adds value to the course, then I would say Google it. I mean, I've had ideas for all kinds of field trips. Like I wanted to take the construction students to like the solar fields out in the desert, and then there's this house that's built out of all this recyclable material that I wanted to take them to. Or there was a college out in LA, and the teacher had said they wanted to go to Olivera Street.
Olivera Street, yeah.
But I'm like, oh, that doesn't really relate to your class. But then I was thinking, well, you could do like a safety audit, and you could have the students walk around and look at the old structures. I mean, one of the oldest structures in Los Angeles is there.
Right.
And you could say, well, why has this building lasted so long and our modern buildings hasn't? So there's a lot of different things you can come up with. But for our teachers, I'm going to put a list together and send that out so they have an idea of some of the options they have.
And part of the job as a community recruiter, David and myself, we're always on the lookout for something interesting that'd be a great field trip for you guys. So whether it's automotive, healthcare, video game, we always try to find something, even if it can't be a field trip, maybe some type of after-school event. In this case, where the teachers can at least participate, network, get an advisory done, or just learn more about whatever's going on in the world of that industry. So we're always on the lookout for that. So in addition to the list that Deidre has and will send to you, we're always on the lookout for something new and interesting, and bringing that up to the program managers to see if this is something that will definitely be worth your while. So.
Yeah.
And field trips are great experiences for our students, and they don't have to be so formal where they go out of the classroom. We have NEPRIS, and it's a great way to bring those field trips into your classroom in mass. I mean, there's a lot going on in there, and so it doesn't have to be so formal. Use NEPRIS.
And that's another use of technology right there.
Exactly. On best practice to alleviate lateness for class up to 30 minutes. So we're discussing students. It sounds like students that are habitually late.
Well, I would say if they're that late, they're absent.
Up to 30 minutes, yeah.
Because I believe that was the practice at Colton was, 30 plus minutes, you mark them absent.
Okay.
So if they come in right before that mark.
And I want to say Redlands Unified just adopted a new practice on that as well.
Oh,
so
yeah?
it's 15 minutes. After 15 minutes, you're truly.
Oh, that's
So-
good. So I would check with your school to see what the policy is on that to make sure, because maybe there's something already in place that you're just not aware of that would help curb that. And you should remind your students of it because, you can say things to them, but they don't really hear you. So the more they hear it, the more likely they'll be to get it.
I would also suggest tying it into the actual curriculum for the class. I've seen an instructor who basically ties their community classroom to your tardies. If you have over 3 tardies, you're no longer eligible to participate in that community classroom over the summer. And so for this instructor, those students are lined up well before the bell, and that instructor hardly has any tardies. So you kind of interweave it. But what were you gonna
Right.
I was going to say, do you want to discuss Disney karaoke?
Oh, I'm terrible at karaoke.
No, we have teachers that have their students, if they're
I
late.
remember you telling me that.
Oh yeah, the Disney. All right, thank you so much for bringing it. I totally forgot about that. One of our instructors has a very creative method. What he does is he gives his students an option when they are tardy. They can either take the tardy, and again, Redlands has this new tardy policy. If you have, I think, 5 or more tardies, you have to sign up for community service, and then you're not eligible to go to prom and all these other events until you do your community service. So this instructor gives his students a choice. If they're late, they can sing in front of the whole class a Disney song. And I was really impressed when I did observe this instructor to see that all his students made an effort to get there on time because nobody really wanted to sing the Disney song. And when the one student who did come in late, he opted to sing in front of the class. But it's just and Disney songs are very positive, and it just kind of set the class into an interesting tone. But that's another strategy to use for class.
That's
Yeah, exactly. Good stuff. Will I ever, or when will I ever, know that I've got it? Meaning I'm really contributing to their education.
Deidre and I were just talking about that. Sometimes the downside is you'll never know. You just hope that you're doing your job, you're doing the best you can do, and hopefully a handful or even one student comes out with something great from your class, or they succeed. In the past, I've had students that I haven't heard from in years, and I'm walking, in the mall somewhere, and all of a sudden they see me and they tell me to my face how wonderful the class was and that they were able to get a job, and they're telling me this in front of my wife, and that makes me feel great. That's when I know. Or on the last day of class, students leaving and they give me a card or a letter, or they send me an email a year later, or they even come to visit the class a year later. Sometimes you lose touch with students, and sometimes you'll be surprised. It could be months or weeks or a year from now, and then you'll know you had an impact on that student. Yeah, and sometimes you never know. You just hope for the best.
So I was thinking, as he was talking, that maybe if you use your assessments to gauge whether or not they're getting it, and that would be an indicator that you're having some impact. I mean, the overall goal is to help them learn, but really you want to have a bigger impact. You want something that's going to carry on. And I would say just make your course as relevant to their life as possible.
Yeah.
So always try to connect it back to something they already know about or they've already experienced. And hopefully their engagement or their enthusiasm would tell you that you're making an impact.
Yeah.
So.
I know some teachers in the past, and it's actually a pretty interesting thing to do, is they created like their own little survey. Sometimes they would give the survey at the end, and they said, this is just for me. It's not for the school district, it's just for me. Please be honest and tell me what you think, and how can I make this class better? How can I teach you better? And they got some really positive feedback, and sometimes they would get the information of how great the class was and such an impact that they had on their lives. So that could be another way if you're interested in creating a survey that could just be a little creative that way.
Excellent. That's a great point, James. Getting that feedback from your students, I think, when we are able to reflect on our teaching industry, there's no better reflection than your clientele, than your students. So I would highly encourage that. That's a great point, James. Get that feedback.
I agree. Yeah. Teaching's not always instant gratification. Sometimes it's long-term gratification.
Yeah.
And I don't know that there's ever a check mark that says, you got it.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen.
It's
that way.
lifelong learning.
Yeah, it's not instant gratification for sure. And sometimes it takes decades.
Yeah. Exactly.
Because I guess, like, if you think a lot of the teachers, all of our teachers were CTE have come from industry. So if you think about it, if they were in industry, what would that positive feedback? If you get to fix somebody's car,
Pat on the back.
bam, the car's done. I got paid. If I made that big sale, you get your paycheck, you get your commission.
Right.
If you're in health,
You
you
help the
can
patient.
see right there if whether or not your patient's getting better. So I can see how that would be more difficult because we have our students are our customers. However, they're not always willingly our customers.
Right.
So we have to find a way to engage them. So
Right. Exactly. Yeah. You'll
that
see
piece is
it down
missing.
the road. A lot of times you'll see it on graduation night when they're walking across that stage,
Right.
and you're like, I remember when they were a freshman, and now there they are walking, getting that diploma that you contributed to.
that's true.
I'll tell you what, you get that one student that comes to you a year from now and they say all these great things about you, that's when you know, you like, that totally makes up everything, every bad day you ever had. It just
Yep.
makes you feel so
Totally.
good just to hear from that one student. It's such a great feeling.
And if you're really, really good,
Yeah.
your former student becomes a teacher. Teaching the same subject you taught.
Exactly.
I'm just saying.
Bragger.
Exactly.
That's very gratifying, I have to
It is very
say.
good.
Yes.
So, last question. What can I do to achieve 100% engagement? Teach like a pirate.
Quiet. I don't know that that's possible. 100%. You're always going to have somebody on one day or another that aren't going to be engaged. I mean, you might have a student that's engaged all the time, and then all of a sudden they have a bad day and they're not going to be engaged.
Yeah.
Oh, that just ruins your chance of having 100% engagement because somebody had a bad day.
Right.
So I wouldn't say the goal should be 100% because you're always going to disappoint yourself.
Right.
So.
But there's definitely some techniques and tools available. So you and I have presented Teach Like a Pirate, and that's the whole thing is about student engagement. And I'm not going to go through the acronym because I don't remember it, but definitely being passionate about what you're teaching. Enjoy what it is that you're teaching.
I don't remember.
I don't remember it either. Being immersive, having a good rapport with them. Going back to those relationships really makes a difference as to whether or not they want to learn. So, long story short, go to our YouTube page, CTE Teach. Look at
that plug in there.
look at the Teach Like a Pirate video. But anything else like engagement, student engagement?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you can't even be 100% sterile in healthcare. Like that doesn't exist. You're like maybe 97.899 if you're lucky. So you can't engage everyone, and everyone always has a bad day. You'll have a bad day, and you probably don't feel like you want to engage anybody. So that happens, but you do the best you can do. Keep the class interesting. Shake it up a bit. Don't just lecture a PowerPoint. Get them up off their chairs. Get them to do an assignment. Get them to do a project. Get them to work together. Mix up the seating arrangement a bit. That throws people off, and that just changes things a lot. Have a team of students who don't usually hang out with each other or sit with each other all of a sudden work on a project together. You shake it up. That's the way to do it. You're not going to get 100%, But I guarantee you'll probably get 97.899.
There you go.
You know,
You're not going to be able to appease everybody. That's just impossible. But again, that was a great point, James. Let it come to your students. I was reading an article about a school. There was a student, and she had some sort of situation with one of her arms when she was born. So she only had one arm, and she wanted to play the cello.
Okay.
Well, in her middle school class, they had just gotten 3D printers, and so
that's cool.
the class made that their objective. What they did is they designed a prosthetic arm for her to be able to play the cello, and that was their whole focus and goal.
Wow.
And what a great
Can
way
you
to
imagine
engage
how
with
much they learned? Like, even if they didn't do all the lessons they were supposed to learn, imagine how gratifying that was. Like, accomplishing that and seeing that other student playing the cello. That would be really cool.
or work with another teacher and get the two classes together to work
Yeah.
on a project together. Something interesting like automotive working with math or something.
Yeah.
So I mean, shake it up.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
It'll make your job more interesting too. You won't be bored.
Exactly. All right. So I think that's all the questions we have. Hopefully we answered all your questions the best we could. This was our very long overnight term parking.
Over term. Long term.
And we will answer some more the next time we have a round of questions.
But that won't be until January.
And that won't be until January because we are taking December off for the holidays, but we will be back in January.
All right.
And thank you all for listening. We hope you have a great day and a great teaching.
May the force
Time.
be with you.